Well, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Mark Schumacher. I am the CEO of the Home Furnishings Association. This is one of our weekly webinars. And trust me when I tell you, this is one that is a subject that every retailer I talk to on a daily basis, in fact, I'm sure all of you are dealing with this issue. Maybe it's second only to supply chain. We talk about finding and hiring good people, whether it's on the sales floor, warehouse delivery, whatever it might be. So we're going to be talking about that in just a couple of seconds, but let me just do a little bit of housekeeping here. Want to remind you that this is being recorded. So when this is done, if you want to share it, you want to see it again, you can find this and all of our webinars on myhfa.org. It is certainly a storehouse for incredible information that's really going to help your bottom line. So please make sure to do that. I also want to mention to you that you'll see on the side of the screen, there is a place there where it says chat and you can ask questions. Please do. We got a ton of questions in advance of this webinar today, but we'll take and deal with whichever we can. But I think you're going to have a ton of takeaways today because this whole talent issue is so critical right at this moment. We have three fabulous guests today that are really going to lend a lot of expertise here. I'm going to introduce them right now. I have Ali Espinosa. She is the HR director at Eldorado Furniture in Florida. Ali, it's good to see you. We also have Karen Fischel. She's the executive director of HR at Furnitureland South, here where I am in the Triad in North Carolina. And Karen's good to have you. And also, Preet Kuar is joining us. She is the CEO of Pacific Staffing and has been in the recruiting business for a long time. I'm not going to say how much because we don't need to worry about age and that kind of stuff. If you start saying that, then it gets ugly. But she's going to lend some great expertise too. So first of all, thank you to all of you joining us. I have to tell you, this is the notes I took because I printed up the pre-questions, and it's just amazing to me that everyone is trying to find a couple of magic bullets here. They're trying to find what are the things that we can be doing differently, because let's face it, right now we're dealing with a lot of openings. We have a lot of people that are not wanting to jump back into the workforce, and on top of that, you're still trying to find good quality people. So let me do a quick round robin here. Ali, I'm going to start with you. How difficult is it right now, and what is in your mind making it the most difficult for anybody trying to hire in our industry right now?
The most difficult is actually getting people to apply. The applications aren't coming in, and when you think you have a live one, they don't show up for the interview.
Oh, lovely. Okay, so not many are applying, and those that aren't showing up. Well, there's a good start. Karen, what about you? What are you seeing are the biggest challenges and issues for you right now?
Yeah, I echo Ali. It's you know, when we are getting applications, which is very unusual. I think this is the first time I can recall where I go out to my recruiting gateway and see 0 for the number of applications. And then when I start filtering through the ones I do have, many don't even meet minimum qualifications, which is, you know, a little disappointing as well. So, you know, one is struggling to get folks to come and even apply. And then we're all competing for talent here in this area. And it just seems like the pool is very shallow right now for talent. So, you know, those are some of the struggles we're having.
And Preet, let me ask you, obviously this is not news to you, what you just heard, but is this commonplace right now for anybody who's trying to hire someone for a sales job or a warehouse type of position for a home furnishings retailer?
Absolutely. So we service a broad range of industry, and across all of industry, either it's healthcare, retail, manufacturing, we're struggling with talent, you know, providing talent quickly enough. So as agency recruiters, we've shifted our focus on, you know, more, you know, really trying to find creative ways to get to talent other than job board hasn't worked for us for a bit. So we're really gearing up. How can we get in front of talent through referrals, through schools, speaking engagements, you know, talking about our clients, what are their edge, what do they have to offer, vice versa. It used to be where we were wining and dining our clients to get job orders and then have a candidate pool to match. Now we have one account manager who's holding on to the clients and trying to say, no, we can't, we don't have the capacity to service you. But the shift is to the candidate side.
Unreal. So let's get to the meat of some of these questions here, and predicated on what you just talked about. So with what you just said, Allie, so what are you finding are in this difficult market? What are the best resources? Because everybody out there wants to know, are there some that are working or at least better than others right now? So what are the resources that you're really leaning heavily on?
The reality is we're trying everything. Today we had a virtual job fair that was offered here, and fortunately that one actually gave us a couple of candidates. We've done the in-person job fairs and had nobody show up. We did a hiring event at one of our showrooms. Nobody showed up. So we took matters into our own hands, and it's kind of a funny story with one of our showrooms is the parking. We share the parking lot with Chick-fil-A, and you know how the lines are at Chick-fil-A. So two of our girls grabbed their cards and ran out to the parking lot and started handing out cards to the people waiting for their orders. And one of the girls said, "Oh, can I apply?" And I'm, of course, come on over. She was in shorts, flip-flops, and a tank top. And we said, "Don't worry about it, come in." And we hired her, you know, so you just got to do whatever you can. And I always tell people, wherever you go, the people that are serving you, whether it's at a restaurant and a retail store, anybody that you know, you don't approach them in that way. You say, if there's anybody that you know that's like you, we're hiring. And that's really the best way.
If I would have predicted that our first takeaway of this webinar was work the line at Chick-fil-A, everybody would have thought I was crazy. But Karen, pick up on this, because the thing that Allie said, that the key there is, so the most, the normal resources aren't working out, so you got to be creative. And so they're doing, reaching out and trying different things. What about you as well? Are there different things that you're doing that like a year and a half ago you would never think about doing?
We have also conducted an on-site career fair, of course, having to structure it a little bit differently so folks feel safe coming in. That was relatively successful. I mean, we got a handful of candidates, but simultaneously, as we're trying to draw people in, we're also trying to keep the ones we have, because we're losing some to, there's this almost bidding war or salary war going on around us too. And, there are employees who will leave. They're not loyal. And so they're going to leave for a 25-cent or a 50-cent increase. So we're also simultaneously competing with that. But we have recently this week really taken charge of some social media pushes, and we've challenged and encouraged all 500 of our associates to be ambassadors for us and, share on their respective social media platforms. And so we had our marketing group to draft it and create the template. So we're all saying the same thing, and we're not, saying things we don't want to say. So they have a template to use, and it's simple as just hit share, just share it, Snapchat it. I don't care what platform you share it to. But that's actually gotten us some traction this week. I was a little bit surprised, but we were having.
Are you rewarding them? Are you rewarding them for doing that if you land somebody?
Not yet. We are in discussions about referral bonuses, possible sign-on, but no, we're not right now doing any type of like monetary reward for that.
Gotcha. I mean, and I'm not trying to make your life miserable, but I mean that's one of those things I've seen in other industries where
Sure,
they've done that.
It's not off the table. Yeah, that idea is not off the table, but we are not doing that right now.
So, Preet, what you've just heard is that it's taking unusual means and really trying everything. What have you seen on a more of a global standpoint that perhaps is working better than other things right now, or is there such an animal?
Yeah, so some of the companies who are successful, and I consult with a couple of them here locally in California, they're really getting on social media, but not just posting here's a position, but really sharing their mission, vision, values, their employer branding. They're tightening it up. They're showing, that the leadership team makes breakfast for their employees on Tuesdays. They celebrate anniversaries. They have some really, really strong culture that promotes, employee engagement and retention programs. And what's really working well for us is videos showing, because some of our clients, we work exclusively with them on contract to hire, as well as we have executive search division. What is so special about our clients? Why this company? Why this position? So even job adverts, what used to work, just post your job description on the website, is no longer interesting or competitive to candidate pool. So you have to get really, what do you get prior to what do we need from you? So I've seen some very creative job postings, and we modify ours, what we call as sizzle point, selling points up front. Like, by working here or by working with this client, this is what you'll get. This is what's special about them. If it's family owned, what is this family's core value? What are they about? So unfortunately, we're dealing with multiple generations. There's a lot of diversity, equity, inclusion, so we have to be mindful of that. But I've seen some very, very creative ways of getting candidate to look at your posting versus others. Videos are working very well.
You bring up something really interesting, because some of the questions that we've got in advance surrounded, how do you find someone who's a cultural fit, right? They talk about that. And I just heard you kind of flipping that around, that you're leading with the culture to try to draw them in, which I guess in the long run would help to make that a little bit of a better fit. But either Allie or Karen, either of you, any thoughts about that? Because that's interesting that she's saying that putting that mission vision out and really selling the company is much more important right now. Are you finding any of that to resonate?
We are unique in that in several ways, but one way, we do have an in-house kind of production. We do our own commercials and we do our own ad spots and things such as that. And we've really hooked onto that from the human resources side and have produced a video. It's essentially several different of our positions giving testimonials of why they love working here. And a lot of that is to the culture. It's to, how we reward our employees, how we treat our employees as family, because we are a family-owned business, and that is very attractive to some people who are looking for that type of culture. So yeah, we take full advantage of that. We part that out on our website. We put out there as well of what we hope are the things that differentiate us as far as not just health and welfare benefits, but the kind of total rewards that we can offer folks to come to Furnishingland South.
Allie, what about you?
Kind of the same thing. We do have our in-house marketing team that does a lot of that, and we have on our website that same thing for interviewing employees on what is it about El Dorado that they love. And we're also doing a lot of the social media things, because that's, there's one group of applicants that's the way that you're going to attract them. So yeah, just like Preet said, those are the things that, we're trying to think outside the box, but not just within HR, but taking in all of our other departments to help us to attract those candidates.
And what you're talking about, really kind of I don't want to use the word desperate, but I mean, this is that point where you're just trying everything because your funnel's empty. It's interesting to me that most of the things that all three of you are talking about are not high dollar items. The video production is one thing, but if you have it in-house, it's not that big of a deal. But when you talk about, you were talking about social media, and Allie, you said, a virtual job fair, things of this sort. So it's not like anybody listening to this, we're not saying, boy, if you don't have a big budget for this, forget about it. It sounds to me like low tech is leading right now when it comes to just getting this out and reaching people. Is that fair?
Yeah. I mean, we're not, we're not doing anything that's a high cost impact to our business. We're just trying to cast a bigger net, and on both sides of the boat. We're trying things that we normally have not necessarily tried before, but it is like trying to catch. It is like going fishing. We don't know what bait is the best bait yet to use for each candidate.
I want to ask one more thing before we kind of go into the next chunk here. But Allie, I'm going to ask this to you first. And I'm using this with you because you talked about your Chick-fil-A example, and here's this person who's not dressed for an interview, and you're just basically like, we don't care, come on in, and we interview them, and it worked out. Is it hard in this environment to not lower the standards too much just to fill a spot? How do you balance that? Because I've heard that from a lot of retailers. It's like sometimes they get so desperate for a body to fill a space that they're settling. How do you manage that? Because then you're, I think, opening a can of worms for a whole nother set of potential problems.
Right. And I think, Mark, just like you were saying, we don't want to lower our standard. However, what we're doing is we need for them to have, we had gone through an exercise of what are things that are non-negotiables, right? That we're not going to change. And those are like the cultural fit, people who have the work ethic that we want in our organization. Those kind of things, you know, we're not going to sacrifice, but we have relaxed a little bit of our dress code, I should say. You know, before we were very conservative. We've changed that quite a bit. And in the Chick-fil-A example, we had to tell the our hiring manager, okay, put aside the way she's going to look to you right now, because she's wearing flip-flops, a tank top, and shorts. She didn't even have a mask. She came in with a tissue over her face and said, "I'm sorry, I don't have a mask." We gave her one, you know, so that she could sit through the interview. But you know, it's trying to not really lower your standard in that sense, but to be a little more open and look beyond maybe the way that they come dressed to the interview, because we have certain standards that they're going to need to abide by.
Preet, is this a hard part? Because the three of you are, you know, longtime professionals in this HR world. And, you know, that part of it is, you know, how that candidate presents and things like that. Those are some of the first impression things that are so important. Is this a little bit counterintuitive? And what do you suggest to the people out there, you know, hiring, who now have to deal with this very different landscape?
I'm with Ali. Build your candidate profile, non-negotiables and nice to have. However, there is a lot of pressure for us as an agency recruiters, no matter if it's direct hire, executive, temp, to speed is what's needed, number one. So I have to consult to my hiring managers, like, you know, we really don't want to jeopardize quality. However, at the same time, right now, I would say for temporary positions, we rank them maybe a B or C candidate, you know, is who we're placing. So now who's the best of all? And we're coaching, we're seeing there's a lot of, and that was a generational issue with us anyways, even for me, to have a lot of conversations on our onboarding, orientation, even for temporary, just making sure they know what the dress code means, being on time, what does that mean, all of that. But right now, that's been give and take. We have to be somewhat flexible. You know, we cannot write up somebody because they're 5 minutes late. I know retail, I've been throughout college, I was in retail and I was a retail manager. 5 minutes late, 3 times a week, you're done. But now with call center positions, warehouse, I'm seeing managers being okay with it somewhat. So it's a problem. You know, are we lowering our standards a bit? Yes. It's just what market dictates. It's really, truly a candidate market.
I want to remind people that have just joined us that we are talking about finding, hopefully, and hiring good people right now in this environment. It is very, very difficult. And that you just heard from Preet Kuar there. She's the CEO of Pacific Staffing. We also have Ali Espinosa from El Dorado Furniture and Karen Fischel from Furniture Land South. Before we get to this next major section, I want to, Karen, I want to send one thing your way because you mentioned it. Talk also about the importance to your colleagues out there, no matter how big they are, single store or beyond, the importance of putting attention to retention, because you bring up a great point. If you're having difficulty filling positions, the last thing you need is an exodus. So talk a little bit about that important focus right now.
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting, certainly an interesting situation to be in. But as far as how are we However, we focused on our retention. At the base of it all, you know, if you're paying competitively, you want to make sure that your comp structure is competitive, and it's always good. You should have some schedule as to how often you review that compensation structure that you have for your company, whether it's annually, you know, market may dictate, it may be every other year. But you should make sure that you are managing to your compensation philosophy, whatever that is. It's showing appreciation. And you know, the thing about showing appreciation is sometimes we want to put a dollar sign to it. You sure can go a long way with free appreciation. And we've done a lot of things here at Furnitureland South that I think were super, super low cost, if any cost, that went a really long way. We did a pay it forward kind of campaign where each manager got 2 cards per person, and they were to write a personal note. There's something about a handwritten note to show appreciation to someone. And they gave that note to the person, but then gave them a blank card. And in that card, it asked them to pay it forward, write a note to someone else in the company to show appreciation. So, you know, just a way to extend gratitude to folks in a time where we're all a bit, you know, overwhelmed and feeling a lot of stress. So for me, it's making sure that your employees are heard, making sure that you're giving them a voice, making sure that you're showing them appreciation, as small as it may be or as large as it may be, a $5 gift card, you know, anything just to show them that you appreciate the hard work they're doing, and also making sure that we are adhering to our compensation philosophy and we are paying folks fairly, competitively, equitably, and on our schedule.
You know, I always think about back to class a million years ago, you know, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and how, you know, the pay piece is down the pyramid, right? All the things you're talking about are at the top of the pyramid. So you didn't realize you were going to do this, but you dovetailed perfectly into the next part of this. So Allie, compensation. I have, you know, how to be competitive with pay, how much to pay, you know, what salaries, you know, have you increased pay to match the competition for the market? These are so many questions that have come in have been related to that. So how are you approaching the whole compensation issue in this environment?
Well, we went ahead and did a whole compensation study right after we did our furlough. We started to do evaluations on positions, and we, you know, sometimes there's some good in the bad. You know, we had this opportunity to really rethink our operation, and so when we did that, we changed job descriptions. Before everybody else came back, we had new job descriptions for them to sign. We reviewed the compensation schedule, and we actually increased a lot of our positions. So we're always now looking at what can we do differently. We've made some adjustments for certain positions where we're now also looking for premium pay for certain, you know, weekend pay, things like that. So there's a lot of things we're always looking to see, to be competitive, because everybody out there is doing something different. I just heard today that one of the big retailers, not furniture, but one of the retailers is doing a state bonus, and they're going to pay part-time, full-time, and their managers like $200 a month, $300, and $500. So, you know, I don't think that's where we want to be, because that can, in my opinion, opens a big can of worms. But, you know, you got to think strategically and outside the box. So.
Preet, let me ask you a question based on what Allie just said then. So if, as you're talking to people on this call that are trying to figure out how this all fits into their business, would you agree that if you're not consistently looking at your comp situation and comparables and things like that, you're going to lose out because of, you know, changes to the marketplace that can happen like that, and somebody else, you know, bumps their you know, minimum wage up somewhere else? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So we always, when we recruit for clients in specific area, we look at who their competitors are and what they're doing. And it's tricky right now because you can't ask employees what they were making. However, when we have changed from going into meeting with a candidate and interviewing them, we're saying we're going to have a conversation. It will be an intake conversation. What's important for you? You know, what are top 3 things you're looking for as an employee? Because we're making the match with our clients for that. And money is not always on the top of the list, but it does come up. It's second or third most of the time. Yeah, it's always the culture, the boss, the environment. Then I always see where they fit in, you know, what they're looking for. A lot of times career progression, if there's opportunities for that. Second, I'm starting to see more and more flexibility, you know, in the workplace. And the third is money. So nonetheless, you always have to know, you know, what a compensation structure should look like and what your competitors or other employers within your community are doing.
Mark, I want to say,
Hourly, sorry.
Go ahead, Ellie.
no, I wanted to piggyback on what Preet was saying, because I think a lot of our candidates are saying that with the remote work that's available out there, they're thinking, well, can we provide you with some type of hybrid remote work? And as we know, some positions you can, and some, you know, in the brick and mortar stores you can't. Right? Your sales associate is basically going to need to be in the showroom, but they are looking for that flexibility.
Karen, I'm assuming you're seeing the same thing. Is that at least from a request standpoint?
You know, I am, but not as much as I think I was expecting coming out of the pandemic. I would have expected, we've had some applicants, you know, to say I prefer remote work, and you know, if that's an option that we can accommodate, we'll certainly be open to that. But most of our positions are expected to be on site, and there really has not been a lot of pushback from that. We have a very vast campus and a lot of opportunity for folks to be in a lot of space. So, you know, we're usually able to get folks on campus and they feel safe being here, and it hasn't been that big of a problem for us.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I know that like El Dorado is a great example. I know that since the pandemic started, you know, you've added a ton of chat functions to your website, et cetera. So you've got people that are not necessarily out in front of you know, physically in front of a customer. So there are some of those things, but you're right, it is still much more an in-person type of role. Preet, what were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Sorry. So for essential employees, I'm seeing when they say flexibility, it's more accommodation for appointments, or God forbid something happens with their kiddos in school, opening and closing, a little bit more on that side for essential employees versus remote work.
Yeah, and you know, you said something a second ago in an answer that is also something that's been a lot of questions asked here. So as Karen, I'll start with you this time. Talk about job descriptions. Have you gone back and re-looked at them? Are there tweaks that people should be thinking about making to the job description, or is that something that should be more in cement and not messed with?
Ironically enough, last year was, I think, had the pandemic even not happened, we were going through an implementation of a performance management module to our HRIS. And so that was part of that process, was pulling out every job description and going through them line by line and making sure we were truly promoting the position accurately. So we've done that. And as we have new positions created, you know, we're taking advantage of making sure we've got those job descriptions accurately portrayed.
Good timing.
Yes, perfect timing.
I mean, that's pretty fortunate. Allie, what about y'all and job descriptions?
Yeah, so we went ahead and redid all of our job descriptions. We, you know, and as we add new positions, we're just like Karen, we're making sure that they're accurate, not just, you know, the old job description from, you know, 5 years ago. So we're updating those and making sure that when we're using them for promoting the positions, that they're accurate.
You know, I don't, please don't take this negatively, and I don't mean it this way, but I'm going to state it this way anyway. And Preet, I'm going to ask you this. Is it just critically important for any entity right now to be cleaning up their job descriptions? And I'm not suggesting that either Allie or Karen had to clean many of them up. You just see them saying, though, it seems like this is a great opportunity to make sure that description that is the job that you're hiring somebody for?
Yeah, so to me, there's two parts, job description and job posting. Job posting is a marketing tool. Job description is for performance management. Here's what you're doing. So if you're trying to attract candidates, have a very, very, attractive job posting. Why us, right? This is what you'll be doing. This is who we are. Why us versus somebody else? And, if they are anybody reading, they spend what, 1 minute, just like we spend about a minute looking at a resume and say yay or nay or maybe. Candidates are even spending less time. So something has to pop out. So when we headhunt for key positions, we absolutely don't repost a job description. We put together a job posting with just requirements as few must-haves, but a lot about company, what you would be doing in this position, what's so attractive about this, what our clients offer, the soft and hard perks, just like we're looking for soft and hard skills.
So essentially, you can flower up the job ad, don't flower up the job description, is basically what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'm using
you
very
have to use
technical terms
that.
here, I realize. I apologize. I'm using very technical, non-technical terms here. Couple of questions that they have come in. One I want to ask you here. I'll throw this out. This is going to be kind of just put it out there, whoever wants to jump on it. Even in this difficult environment, are you utilizing anything like predictive index, Myers-Briggs, anything like that? Are there any of those things that are usable now, or is this just a whole different ballgame?
I absolutely utilize for executives, leadership position more than ever, predictive index and whatnot, because we are looking for leaders who are coming in challenging time to retain. So
Okay.
That's where I'm always advising the CEOs, CFOs, HR leaders, let's slow down to hire the right person. Entry level quicker, not too slow. Again, we have to fill those positions. So we're absolutely using that, Wonderlic, because problem solving, critical thinking skills, it's all heightened right now with the new environment. There's a lot of burnout with HR leaders and just first line leaders. So we're using that a lot more.
Again, with leaders, et cetera. Karen, what about you?
So for the positions that we've been hiring for, we are not using any of the predictive analytics for pre-employment. We do have positions, for example, we've recently hired several programming type positions. And so we do create skills-based testing, as part of the interview process.
Okay.
We want to make sure that we have the right skill set, because sometimes people aren't always honest on resumes. Not to shock you, but just saying. And so we actually do a skills test, just to make sure that they truly do meet at least the minimum requirements we're looking for those jobs. But we aren't doing the personality or behavior testing pre-employment.
Okay, Allie?
Yes, we do use one for certain positions, not all positions. The customer service, the sales associates, those type of positions. And it's just, like I say, it's just another tool. It's not one that's a defining, it's going to say yes or no. As you know, Mark, here in South Florida, with the language barriers, those can be a little skewed sometimes. So we have to take that into consideration. So if it comes, it comes down to it, we're looking at it as another tool, but we're not making a decision based solely on that tool.
Fair enough. Okay. And good question just came in here too. This is from one of the folks that's joining us and said, our retention struggle is mostly in office positions. They said retention struggle. Are you seeing that happening? That people are being lured out of some of those office jobs?
We are. I know that in our corporate office here, we've had a little bit of turnover, and it's been they're lured away. Yes, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
We're seeing it in, sorry.
No, go.
We're seeing that a lot in Sacramento, California, because we're 2 hours away from Silicon Valley. So tech companies are hiring our talent here, all of it, HR, administrative, office, accounting, for remote work. Because we are very predominantly healthcare and government based, so we're not, high tech in our area. So we're seeing a lot of professionals being lured away for 100% remote role.
So it sounds to me like another great takeaway from this conversation is that while we've talked about the lure away for salespeople and all these other positions, not to forget the office, not to forget your support staff, because boy, it's going to be just as hard to fill that spot. Karen, would you agree with that? I mean, you got to make sure that you're minding all of this for potential competitive issues.
Absolutely. We have some professional positions open right now, and I never thought they would have been a struggle to recruit for, but we're just not even getting that much interest. So because they are, and maybe it is because they are on site. I'm not sure the reason, but we're getting a lot of applicants or resumes on that.
So, by the way, I just want to remind everybody, we're having just an absolutely outstanding conversation about finding and hopefully hiring good quality people, whether it's sales in your office or warehouse and delivery, with three top professionals. We have Ali Espinosa from Eldorado Furniture, we have Karen Fischel from Furnitureland South, and Preet Kuar, who is the CEO of Pacific Staffing. So let's get into another section here. With all that we've talked about, with having trouble sourcing and finding potentials and changing certain aspects of expectations of those candidates because the pool is so small. So are there right now key interview questions or approaches that are really a part and parcel to this environment right now? Are there things that you're asking maybe now that you didn't before, or are there things that again, that people that are listening to this, all of our retailers here that are needing to hire people, are there things they should be asking? Let me just kick that around, and we'll start. Let's start with you. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so we've shifted our interview questionnaire from behavioral based to just straightforward questions. What are you looking for? What are your short-term goals as an employee? What are your long-term goals? Where do you see yourself as a fit? Why did you leave your last companies? Who are your good bosses? What made them be a good boss for you? So we're starting to ask that and see if they can navigate through and they can answer those questions rather than just getting a job. Because if they're just getting a job loosey-goosey, they will leave for 50 cents extra, $1 extra. YS, is the location convenient? All of that. Then I also look for if they have questions, because I always send job descriptions up front, or my 10 recruiters on the team. We send that up front. We say, review this, and then we'll meet with you. So we look for just how much effort the candidates are making. But we've noticed that it's less and less. So I do see why, we're scooping candidates on the first interview or on the spot.
And Karen, it sounds to me like when I hear Preet say to really focus it more on the employees' goals, now we're really talking about the first stages of the retention piece even before you hire them. So are you also finding there's a little bit of a shift maybe in what that questioning looks like when you're in that hiring process?
Yeah, a little bit. We ask those same questions in addition to, I really want to know, tell me what you're looking for in your next and final employer. How can we be your final stop? And we tell our candidates, and we tell new hires as they're in orientation, you never have to update your resume. We want this to be the place where you retire from. And so how can we make that happen for you? We've also, as part of our interview process, we've shortened it. What we found too was the multiple steps in interviewing or getting someone to the onboarding process, we were losing them. So we now have certain positions, particularly like our warehouse, material handler, those type positions where once we do a phone screen, we get them in quickly, and if the hiring manager feels they are the right fit, and we have prepared them on how to interview. If they feel they're the right fit, they can make a contingent offer on the spot. they reach out to recruiting, and we immediately start getting them scheduled for the background and the drug testing, and we, do all of that while they're here, just to shorten up that time to get them onboarded. So
Because you're worried if they go out the door,
they'll go
they might
somewhere
not
else.
come back.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
Allie,
I
I
don't
see
worry
you
about
nodding.
that. I know that happens. Yeah, that happens.
I mean, it's not like this hasn't. It's not like this never has happened in the past. But in this environment, it's just much more critical, right? And Allie, you can jump in on this to make sure that if you're thinking you're going to go that way, to get them, hook them right away. I mean, is that fair?
Absolutely. We did the same thing. We had a pretty long process and we've shortened it because even making the job offer, if it's on a Friday and we don't get to that person until Monday, somebody else has made them an offer. And we're losing them even after they've committed and they said yes, but they never got something to complete the process, like their drug test papers or anything like that. Next thing you know, they're already accepted another offer. So you got to act quickly, and that's a huge takeaway, I think, for everybody, that people aren't waiting. You got to act fast.
We have yet to stumble onto any aspect of the recruiting and hiring process that you all have not tweaked or changed, which is extraordinary. Because adjustments in the past to maybe a smaller candidate pool might incur one or two changes, but now we're talking about, holy smokes, you guys are talking about, you're changing your onboarding, you're changing your retention, but there's nothing that you've kind of been that's untouched. And so this is why there's such an interest in this subject, because you're three professionals that have been at this a long time, that have that you work with great teams and great people. For a lot of our members, it's just them or maybe one extra person. And this is tough. You're having to spend a lot of time focused on this part of your world. So, I mean, you guys have probably never had more of a spotlight on what you do than right now. Karen, is that fair to say? I don't want to overstate it, but it certainly seems like that's what I'm hearing.
I feel like I've been in a spotlight for 15 months, actually. So in one way or another, I feel like, yeah, like everyone's looking at me for guidance or advice or people. And, it's been a hard year plus. So, yeah. And, we're all here as employers in my area. We're all competing for a lot of this same talent. So it's a huge competition going on here in this area in our county, and particularly for drivers. And if you're we're all familiar with what's going on in the furniture industry. I mean, as far as sales folks, I think if you can't make it right now in selling furniture, I mean, it's like crazy. Our sales are just off, but then you've got the supply chain issue. And so, we've got capacity issues if we do have the furniture capacity and getting it delivered and taken into the homes. And so we're getting creative on those positions. So our drivers are not just driving trucks, they're actually loading, unloading. It's very physical. And so we've recently started a new position called driver helper. And so while you don't need a CDL to drive, we just need you to help load, unload, and install furniture. So we were finding that we were losing drivers to our trucking companies around here because those aren't as physical jobs as what we have here at Furnitureland. So it's a huge competition right now for help.
I was not anticipating going down this path, but I'm going to with the three of you because I would love to get your input. There's also been a huge change, and this was really happening prior to the pandemic, but the pandemic made it even more difficult, is customer service skills among delivery people. Yes. Or anybody that's on the back in the back room that's facing the public. Beforehand it was the pressure of white glove. Then it became the pressure, this is my vernacular, of latex glove, meaning all of the safety protocols, all that kind of good stuff. As you're looking to hire people in those realms, that's also a different ballgame. Preet, I'll start with you, but it seems to me like that's a huge change too, because they're much more, that customer contact is even more critical now than it has been.
Yeah, so communication skills, we're always looking for, ability, critical thinking, communication, agile, nimble. Those are the buzzwords we've used, but what does that mean? You know, can you communicate through? There's going to be, like, if you have human touch, there's you don't know who is on the other end. Some might want to hug you or handshake, and the others are so afraid. So you have to be able to read for those cues, look at them. So all of the positions we are looking for, again, leadership or entry-level customer service, soft skills are a lot more important, even in HR. So I'm known for HR placement in this area. I'm going back to, you know, degrees, SPHR, all of this is good, but how quickly have you navigated through change and let that and influence that with all your team? I really am sad to see a lot of great employers that didn't have a robust HR professional to guide them through this, or they were too small to have their internal. So in all positions, that old-fashioned way of recruiting is coming back into it, that what we did 25 years ago, really having a conversation if people have the soft skills to navigate through and read the room and give what customers are looking for, either internal or external.
Allie, how do you gauge those soft skills that are so important?
Well, like Preet said, it's the same thing with the customer service is one of the critical things for all of our positions, not just, you know, like our sales associates or our what we call our customer service agents. It's for our porters, it's for everybody in the organization, because we're actually having to move people around to positions where they maybe never had more contact with the customer, and now they are. So that's something that we've had at El Dorado, is everybody should have these customer service skills.
Yeah, and you just and appreciate that, because now you're making me think, and especially for retailers listening to this, is that, you know, and Karen, I'll throw this at you, is how important is it also now to have employees that are adaptable, you know, that may be asked to do something a little bit outside that job description, or move towards something else. And I mean, are you looking inside also for people to fill different roles, maybe more than you have historically?
Oh, absolutely. We've asked employees, you know, where could you expand a bit? And, you know, speaking about soft skills, I would say 90% of our positions here interact with a customer in some way, whether it's facing or whether it's on the phone. And so those skills are critical for us. And we are a door swing model here. So we have folks coming on our campus, and then we don't use third parties to deliver the furniture. Those are our employees. And so that's super important, that when we're hiring a driver, it's a driver with a customer service personality or customer service passion about them. And that gets even more complicated to find. But back to your original question, yes, we've had several positions, like in our guest services to customer service. You know, can you scoot over here and help customer service who are currently overwhelmed because everyone's looking for their furniture that's stuck on a container somewhere? You know, how can you be flexible and adapt to a different environment and taking calls versus greeting customers who are excited to be walking in the door, and to now be on a phone speaking with someone who may not be quite as happy. So we do ask folks to sort of flex their skill sets a little bit.
So no matter the size of the employer, would you suggest that cross training is maybe never been more important than it is now?
Absolutely. And that's what we look for employees. Are they flexible? Do not just stick with, you know, that's one of the things all the employers are looking for, because everybody is lean. It's taking a while to fill the positions as vacancies, you know, and we have to run a business. All of us, as a business owner, I have employees, and I ask them to be able to be an account manager, a sourcer, a recruiter, wherever we're needed. We all answer the phone and provide that excellent customer service, because that candidate who's calling, we could place within a day now, versus telling them to send their resume, you know, the whole thing. So it's across every industry. It's very, very important that they're flexible to be able to cross-train.
And go ahead, Allie.
We actually went ahead and did cross-training for everybody in the showroom. For example, all of our, whether you're a decorator, porter, a head porter, housekeeper, everybody was trained on how to write orders. Because at some point, we were short in the showrooms. So everybody was trained on how to do, collect the payments and write orders and, just helping somebody on the floor.
So you
And same
definitively, I'm sorry, go ahead.
with larger companies, I've seen it flatten a bit. So, we had HR departments of 20. Now I'm seeing there was 2 recruiters and everybody else was doing benefits or other things. Everybody has to learn how to recruit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a big job.
Well,
the managers are learning how to recruit.
and it's interesting. There's a CEO of a large home furnishing retailer who, when I was visiting with them, just happened to be talking and said, well, how, you arrived, how was it? Talked about, went to lunch and said, gosh, lunch was great, and really talked about this this waitress and said, gosh, she was fantastic. She was very good. Do you know that after he heard that, he went the next day, sought her out and gave her his business card and just said, if you're ever thinking about, so I'm gonna do you HR professionals a favor and let that you guys, all of the people that work with you, above you, below you, it's everybody's job to recruit. I think that's pretty fair, and I think it's pretty awesome. But I thought that was great though, that a CEO would be willing to go out and interact with somebody, hand a card, and say, I've heard you're fabulous with customers. If you ever think about something different, we'd love to have you talk to us. So interesting. I wanted
I
to
got
ask.
recruited from retail myself to be a recruiter. So a headhunter in Silicon Valley recruited me while I was at grocery store front-end manager. I have a degree in accounting. I was interning at KPMG and I said, I like people, just talking to him. He came back and hired me. He's still my mentor. So I'm always telling that story to everybody.
HFA found me because I was wearing flip-flops in the line at Chick-fil-A. And I'm kidding, I'm sorry. Not wanting to make light, but I'm just saying. One last thing, and then I want to go to our takeaways for this. This time has just kind of flown by. But one last, and this is just for quick answers here. We've talked a little bit about retention, and Karen, you talked about listening and some of the things you do, et cetera. So keeping employees happy right now is important. Allie, what's maybe the 1 or 2 things that you think somebody should definitively do to make sure that their team is happy?
I think the most important thing is appreciation, and give them a thank you. Something simple, anything like donuts for breakfast, it doesn't matter. Just, it's the little things that and we've surveyed our teams, and that's what they want. They want their supervisors to just acknowledge that they did a good job.
Okay, and be personal kind of about it. Okay, Karen, what about you?
Yeah, so I talked a little bit earlier about appreciation. So that, in addition to, this past year for employees has been really difficult in multiple ways. Employees have been sort of faced with things, particularly if they have children, school-age children. There's a lot of things that's been going on that they haven't had to deal with before. And I think it's just, and I can see this, we're a self-insured healthcare plan, and I can see this even for my claims. There's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of depression. I think in addition to showing appreciation is showing compassion and showing grace. And so making sure that you're checking in with your employees and truly asking them, are you okay? And these can be, just pull them in. And I have this conversation with my frontline managers, and I say, you best know your employees. And if you see them acting unusual or they're not performing like they can perform, pull them aside, have a conversation. Let them know, if you're not comfortable talking to me, here's our EAP brochure. Make sure that they know that you recognize something's going on, and I'm providing you a resource. just extend some compassion. It's been a difficult year for them and their households, and you don't know what someone is bringing with them to work. And you know, sometimes work is their safe place. So just make sure that they have the resources that they need to make it through.
Love it. And Preet, anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, so we recruit, we place candidates, and we walk away. So some of the places we've placed or clients we've placed candidates for retention are what Ali and Karen are saying. It's simple, inexpensive, kudos, you know, food, thank you, having even if you can't afford it, some sort of wellness type of program, or if you have EAP, it's even better, because we've all been impacted by COVID, either we admit it or not. And having some support system is helping a lot more than others. So our employee, we have quality measurements for 200-300 temps. Most love it if employers are openly saying we're here for you.
Love that. I appreciate the three of you really highlighting that, because I think that's critically important. We've seen it here. I think every business that, you know, has, you know, whether people openly admit it or not, the whole COVID situation just added a layer of weight to our shoulders. And it's, you know, it's hard to offload that sometimes, and everybody's impacted no matter how great their smiling face looks. You know, there's always something there. So I think that's great. We had a number of takeaways. Want to bring those up on the full screen if we could, and look at some of the things that we've talked about today. So here's just some of our key takeaways. You need to be creative, in seeking applicants. All people giving you great service are great candidates. And this just really basically said, it's just hard in that pool right now. So you got to be creative. We heard about social media, other things. Great comments. Encourage your staff to be employee ambassadors via social media by giving them some templates, because they can sometimes be your best lead to others. Show your culture via social media. Post successes, anniversaries, charity events. Record employee testimonials, why they like working for you. That's a great way to draw folks. Build your candidate profile with non-negotiables, the kind of things that you're not gonna put aside just because you're having a hard time filling a position. What are those things that you will not waver off of, but be flexible in the interview process and flexible going forward if you can be. Let's look at some other takeaways here, if we could. We have another, there we go. Extend gratitude and show appreciation. We just talked about that. A pay it forward campaign is a great thing also, where you're connecting your staff together. Review compensation strategy as well as job descriptions, not just because of the pandemic, but this I'm hearing from the three of you is something that's ongoing. What can you do differently? How have jobs changed? Make sure you're reflecting that, and make sure that your compensation is competitive. And something that Preet told us is also make sure that the job description is not flowered like your job ad is. Make sure that it's spot on. Predictive index or pre-employment tools are important for leadership positions, but we heard from both Karen and Ali that right now it's really hard to utilize those effectively when it comes to a lot of the mainline positions you're talking about. But if it works for your leadership, it's not a bad idea. Skills testing is important for those frontline positions as well. We talked a lot about finding those soft skills, those customer service skills. A shift from behavioral interview questions to more straightforward potential employee goals and needs is something else that was suggested by our panel today that'll help you kind of get through it. A couple more things here real quick. Allow your hiring manager to make an offer to interviewees if they deem a great fit in the interview. If they leave, they may not come back. So if you think you got a possibility, get them. Communication and customer service skills, soft skills, very important. We talked about that a second ago in every job description, just to really make sure they understand the whole environment. And cross-training is crucial, because you might have somebody right underneath you right now that can really be helpful in one of these areas. Wow. And I wanted to mention to you, by the way, that both Furnitureland South and El Dorado are both proud members of the Home Furnishings Association. So there is power in membership, not just for webinars like this, but for many other things. And by the way, we have to change that because it says join a community of 1,400 retailers. We've now gone over 1,500 retailers that are members of HFA with over 8,000 storefronts. Also, by the way, you'll see we have there in our handouts a benefits guide if you want to learn more. But I want to personally thank Ali Espinosa from El Dorado Furniture. I appreciate you being with us today. Karen Fischel with Furnitureland South, and Preet Kuar with the CEO of Pacific Staffing. The three of you have been fantastic. I think there's just a lot of great takeaways here. And I think that the thing that I'm just going to say in wrapping this up is Nothing is set in stone here. Your HR, everything you do, whether you're a single store operator or a large company, is you've got to be changing and adapting at all times because the marketplace keeps changing as well. For everybody on the call, I wish you good business. I wish you success in hiring, and we look forward to seeing you next time. I'm Mark Schumacher. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye.